The moment I saw my wife block the military policeman with her body, I knew something inside me had already snapped. She wasn't protecting protocol, she was protecting the man who nearly killed my father. And that decision cost her everything, including her ring. She stood there in that sterile clinic corridor, Colonel Rebecca Reed, my wife of 8 years, and told Sergeant Cole that Lieutenant Colonel Vale would remain on duty. My father was 10 feet away, behind a curtain, with 6 stitches over his eyebrow, a fractured wrist, and a concussion that had him seeing double. I looked at her for 3 full seconds, trying to find the woman I'd married somewhere in that rigid posture. Then I pulled off my wedding band and placed it beside the MP's incident card in my open palm. "All right," I said, and my voice didn't even shake. Her expression tightened like she'd just been slapped. "Daniel, don't do this here." "I'm not doing anything here," I said, and slipped the card into my wallet. Sergeant Nina Cole, the young MP beside us, looked more uncomfortable than I'd ever seen a soldier in uniform. She was young enough to still believe rank made hard situations clearer, not more complicated. Rebecca lowered her voice, that command tone she used when she wanted to contain a problem. "Your father got involved in something that had nothing to do with him." I almost laughed. "He watched your deputy put his hands on a specialist. Marcus was correcting a soldier. He shoved him into a vehicle. You didn't see it." "No, Dad did." "And Marcus says your father came at him." I glanced toward the curtain, where the outline of my father's boot showed underneath. One toe had dried blood on it from where he'd slipped beside the motorpool curb. "Did Marcus tell you why Dad's wrist is broken?" Rebecca's jaw moved, but no words came out. "Did he tell you why Dad needed 6 stitches?" "Daniel. Did he?" She didn't answer, and that was when I knew the truth. It wasn't that she believed Marcus Vale was innocent. She simply believed his career mattered more than what he'd done. Rebecca had commanded the 18th Sustainment Brigade at Fort Halden for 14 months. Marcus was her executive officer, her second in command. The man who controlled her calendar, her readiness briefings, her inspection packets, half the 1,000 small fires that landed on her desk every week. Division certification was 11 days away. She'd been talking about it for 6 months, obsessing over every checkbox and timeline. A clean certification would put her brigade in the top readiness category and strengthen that promotion file everyone around her pretended not to discuss. Marcus had built most of that certification package. Removing him 11 days before inspection would be chaos, and I could see the calculation behind her eyes. It was the same look she used when a convoy route changed. When a maintenance deadline slipped, when a staff section fell behind risk, mission, acceptable loss. Only this time, the acceptable loss was my father. Sergeant Cole cleared her throat. "Sir, I need to finish taking your statement." Rebecca looked at her. "Sergeant, there's no need to turn a family dispute into a command spectacle." Cole's face changed just slightly, but I saw it, and so did Rebecca. She corrected herself immediately. "I mean, the underlying incident involved a misunderstanding between civilians and military personnel. Let the investigation establish the facts." I almost laughed out loud. 5 minutes earlier, she'd already established them for herself. I turned to Cole. "I'll give you my statement." Rebecca caught my elbow. "Daniel, outside." I looked down at her hand until she released me. We'd been married 8 years, and she'd never touched me like that in public, not because she was ashamed, but because she was careful. Rebecca was always careful. Our marriage had survived 3 relocations, 2 deployments, 1 miscarriage, my father's heart surgery, her command selection, and the year I gave up a promotion because her assignment made living in separate states impossible. We'd fought, gone to bed angry, missed anniversaries, communicated through grocery lists and calendar notifications. But until that afternoon, I'd never looked at her and felt like I was standing across from someone who would use her rank to make me smaller. I followed her into the corridor. The base clinic smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee, the smell of bad news. 2 soldiers near radiology stood when they saw the silver eagle on Rebecca's uniform. She barely noticed them. "Marcus made a mistake," she said. "A mistake is missing a turn. He hit a 67-year-old man. Your father is a retired first sergeant who still thinks every officer under 70 needs his supervision. My father told Marcus not to shove a 20-year-old specialist. He interfered. And Marcus punched him. He pushed him. His head hit concrete." Rebecca exhaled through her nose. "I am not defending that. You just refuse to suspend him. Suspension before an investigation is not justice. Neither is the brigade commander telling an MP not to make it a command spectacle. Her eyes hardened. Be very careful there. That wasn't Rebecca, my wife. That was Colonel Reed, the officer who could freeze a room without raising her voice. Once I'd admired that quality. Now she was using it on me. I nodded. That's useful. What is? Knowing exactly where we are. Her face softened for half a second. Daniel, I know you're angry. I'm not angry. Of course you are. No, I was angry when I saw Dad on the pavement. I was angry in the ambulance. I was angry when Marcus stood 10 yards away telling the MP's dad had lost his balance. I held up my empty left hand. I'm past angry. Rebecca stared at the pale band of skin where my ring had been. Ben, put that back on. No. Her eyes lifted to mine. What? I'm not putting it back on. Don't make a decision about our marriage because you're emotional. You just made a decision about our marriage because you have an inspection in 11 days. Her lips parted, and for once, Colonel Rebecca Reed had no immediate response. I stepped around her. She followed. Daniel. I kept walking. Daniel, stop. I stopped at the end of the corridor and looked back. She lowered her voice. Marcus is essential right now. That sentence did more damage than the rest of the afternoon combined. I took out my phone. Rebecca frowned. What are you doing? Making sure I remember exactly what you said. I'm standing right here. I know. I opened the message she'd sent me 20 minutes earlier, while I was in radiology with Dad. Asterisk, please keep your father calm until after certification. Marcus is essential right now. I will handle this, asterisk. I took a screenshot, then emailed it to myself. Rebecca watched me, her face draining of color. Daniel. You wrote it. I meant I would handle the personnel issue. You meant you wanted Dad quiet. That is not what I said. It is exactly what you said. I saved a second copy to cloud storage, then put the phone away. I need to finish my statement. She stood in the corridor while I went back inside. My father was sitting upright when I returned. Thomas Reed, 24 years in the Army, another 16 fixing agricultural equipment after retirement. At 67, he still had shoulders that made hospital gowns look poorly designed. His left wrist was in a temporary splint, purple bruising already darkening his cheek. He looked at my bare hand. You lose something? No good, I said, but that was Dad. He could turn a wrecking ball into one syllable. Sergeant Cole sat beside his bed with a notepad. Mr. Reed was telling me what happened before Lieutenant Colonel Vale approached him. I pulled up a chair. Dad looked at Cole. I already told you. Young specialist backed a maintenance truck into a barrier. Vale started chewing him up in front of everybody. Did Lieutenant Colonel Vale strike the soldier? He grabbed the kid by the front of his vest and shoved him into the truck. Cole wrote something down. You said something. Yeah, I said, take your hands off him. And then he told me to mind my own business. Dad looked at me. I should have. You weren't wrong. I didn't say I was wrong. I said it would have been healthier. Cole almost smiled. Dad continued. I told him rank didn't give him the right to put hands on soldiers. He got closer, asked who I thought I was. What did you say? I told him I was the man standing there. That sounded exactly like my father. He told me to get off his motor pool. I told him I was leaving as soon as somebody checked on the specialist. He slapped my hand away when I pointed at the kid. Then he shoved me. Cole looked up. Did you grab him? After he shoved me, I caught his sleeve, kept myself from going down. Then he hit me. Open hand or closed fist? Closed. Dad tapped the swelling near his eyebrow. Right here. Cole nodded. And after that? I went backward, wrist folded under me, head caught the curb. Did you strike Lieutenant Colonel Vale at any point? No. Threaten him? No. Use abusive language? Dad thought about it. I called him a disgrace after he punched me. Cole wrote that down too. That's probably not legally significant, sir. Still true. The curtain opened, and a young man stood there in dusty camouflage trousers and a brown t-shirt. He had a strip of medical tape above one eyebrow. Sergeant Cole turned. Specialist Pike. The soldier looked at Dad. You okay, sir? I've been prettier. Pike swallowed. I told them what happened. Dad nodded. Good. Pike looked at me next. Sir, I have video. Everything in the room stopped. Cole stood. Video of the assault? Not all of it. I started recording when Lieutenant Colonel Vale was yelling at Nolan. I thought he was going to smoke him in the motor pool or something. Where is the recording? On my phone. Has anyone asked you to delete it? Pike hesitated, and that hesitation mattered. Cole noticed too. Specialist. Major Bell told me Lieutenant Colonel Vale wanted everybody to avoid sharing unofficial footage until command reviewed the event. Major Bell worked for Marcus, in Rebecca's operations shop. Cole's expression became very still. Did anyone order you to delete the recording? No, Sergeant. Did anyone tell you not to provide it to law enforcement? Not exactly. Show me. Pike unlocked his phone, and the video began with the camera pointed downward. Marcus's voice came through clearly. If you cannot back a vehicle 20 feet without hitting a concrete post, maybe I need to find someone who can. Another voice answered. Sir. The ground guide stepped away. I didn't ask for an excuse. The camera rose, and Marcus Vale appeared beside a maintenance truck. He was 43, tall, fit, always perfectly composed, but not on this video. He had one fist bunched in Specialist Nolan's vest, then he shoved the young soldier backward into the truck door. Dad entered the frame from the left. Take your hands off him. Marcus turned, and the video shook. For the next few seconds, Pike's camera pointed toward the pavement, but we heard Marcus say, who the hell are you? Dad replied, someone old enough to know what bad leadership looks like. Then there was a sharp sound, a grunt, shouting, and the camera came back up just in time to show Dad falling backward. Marcus stood in front of him with his right fist clenched. Nobody spoke. Cole held out her hand. Specialist, I need that file preserved. Pike nodded. Yes, Sergeant. Dad looked at me. I looked toward the doorway, and Rebecca was standing there. She'd heard enough. Her face was unreadable. Marcus appeared behind her 20 seconds later, clean uniform, clean boots, no blood, no dust, like a man arriving to inspect somebody else's problem. Rebecca turned on him. You told me he grabbed you. He did. Before or after you hit him? Marcus's eyes moved toward Pike's phone, and something flashed across his face, calculation. He became physically aggressive. Dad laughed once, the sound hollow. You punched an old man and found a thesaurus. Marcus ignored him. Ma'am, I told you the situation escalated. You said you pushed him away after he grabbed you. That is what happened. Pike spoke quietly. No, sir. Marcus turned, and the young specialist went pale, but he held his ground. You shoved him first. Marcus stared at him. Rebecca saw it, so did I. That should have been the moment she changed course. It wasn't. She looked at Sergeant Cole. You have what you need for the initial report. Ma'am. Good. Rebecca turned to Marcus. You will return to headquarters. You will have no contact with Mr. Reed or Specialist Pike regarding this incident. Marcus stiffened. Ma'am. You will also avoid the motor pool pending further guidance. I waited. That was it, no suspension, no removal as executive officer, no order to surrender authority over witnesses. Marcus would return to brigade headquarters with access to every staff officer whose statements might matter. I said, he's still your deputy. Rebecca looked at me. The investigation will determine what happens next. He has direct influence over half the people who work around him. I have instructed him not to interfere. Dad shook his head. Rebecca. She looked at him. He'd always called her Rebecca, even after she pinned on Colonel. He'd toasted her promotion with better bourbon than he could afford. Now he looked more tired than angry. You know better. Her shoulders tightened. Dad, I am trying to handle this correctly. Don't call me Dad right now. That hit her, I saw it. Marcus looked away. Dad leaned back against the pillow. You don't get to wear the uniform like a shield for him and still call me that. Rebecca's voice went quiet. I am not shielding anyone. Then get him out of the way while people tell the truth. He has been restricted. He's your executive officer. He is entitled to due process. So am I. Nobody had anything to say after that. The doctor kept Dad overnight for observation. I stayed until he fell asleep at 6:40 that evening. I walked across the clinic parking lot alone. Rebecca was waiting beside our SUV, I thought automatically, then corrected myself. Her SUV. The vehicle was registered in her name. My truck was at home. She stepped away from the driver's door. We need to talk. No, we don't. Daniel. I need clothes and my laptop. You're coming home. It was not a question. No. Where are you going? Hotel tonight, because we had a fight because your deputy assaulted my father and you chose to protect your command calendar. I did not protect him. You left him in a position where every captain, major, and NCO who saw something knows he still sits outside your office. Rebecca folded her arms. I issued a lawful no-contact instruction. And you think that erases the pressure? Marcus has served with me for 3 years. So have I. Her face changed, but I continued before she could answer. Longer, actually. Don't compare your marriage to a command relationship. I'm not. You already did. She looked away. The sun was going down behind the hospital buildings, and a helicopter crossed the far end of the base low enough that we could hear the rotor wash. Rebecca rubbed her forehead. We are 11 days from certification. I nodded. There it is again. I am responsible for 3,800 soldiers. And apparently none of that responsibility extends to what your second-in-command does when he thinks nobody important is watching. He will be held accountable if the investigation supports it. If. I know exactly what I mean. I opened my phone. Rebecca watched me tap a contact. Who are you calling? My lawyer. She blinked, then laughed, not because anything was funny, but because she genuinely thought I couldn't be serious. Daniel. I put the phone to my ear. Don't. I looked at her, and the laughter vanished. Don't call a lawyer because you're furious. The call connected. Grant Family Law. This is Melissa. Hi, my name is Daniel Reed. I need to schedule the earliest available consultation to file for divorce. Rebecca's face went completely still. The receptionist asked a question. I gave my phone number. Tomorrow at 9 works. I ended the call. Rebecca stared at me. You just scheduled a divorce consultation in front of me. Yes. You are insane. No, your father got hurt this afternoon, and now you're ending an 8-year marriage. No, you ended something this afternoon. I'm just filing the paperwork. She stepped closer. You think marriage means I abandon military procedure because you're upset? No, I think marriage means when your deputy lies to you about punching my father, you stop letting him operate from the seat of power until witnesses can speak freely. You have no idea what removing an executive officer does to a brigade this close to certification. Then your brigade has a serious structural problem. That's easy for you to say. There. It was the same phrase she'd used when I told her 2 years earlier that her 70-hour workweeks were killing her. Easy for you to say, the phrase she used when I suggested refusing a posting that would derail my civilian aviation safety certification. Easy for you to say, the phrase she used when Dad needed heart surgery and I spent 3 weeks striding between Fort Halden and his town because she couldn't leave a command exercise. I'd built an entire life around making things easier for Rebecca. She'd forgotten that ease was work someone else was doing. I nodded. You're right. She frowned. About what? It is easy for me to say now, because I don't have to protect your career anymore. I walked past her. The next morning, I signed the divorce petition at 9:37. My lawyer was a 54-year-old woman named Elaine Grant, who wore reading glasses on a chain and had an office where every file seemed to know exactly where it belonged. She didn't gasp when I told her my wife was a colonel. She didn't seem impressed either. Any children? She asked. No. Joint real property? A cabin outside Pine Ridge. We bought it 5 years ago. Mortgage paid off last year. She looked over her glasses. Whose money? Both. Mostly mine for the down payment, mostly hers during the final 2 years. Joint title. Retirement accounts? Separat. Joint checking? Household expenses only, about $12,000 in it. Any reason to believe she'll move assets? No. Any reason to believe you will? No. Good. Keep it that way. She slid a yellow pad toward me. Do you want the cabin? I thought about it. Rebecca and I had spent exactly 11 weekends there in 5 years. Every trip had started with her promising not to open her laptop, and every trip had ended with the laptop open. No personal property, my tools, my father's old motorcycle, my computer equipment, half the furniture if she wants to fight over it. Do you want support? No. Do you expect her to ask? I almost smiled. She earns more than I do. That wasn't my question. No, she won't ask. Elaine nodded. Then this can be straightforward if both of you allow it to be. I looked at the petition. File it. You are certain? Yes. She studied me for a moment. You don't have to persuade me, I'm asking because yesterday was clearly significant. I am certain. She turned the document toward me, and I signed. The pen made a faint scratching sound, and 8 years became a signature. It should have felt bigger, instead, it felt precise. I left Elaine's office and drove back toward Fort Halden. At the visitor control intersection, I turned right instead of going to my office. I headed for housing. Rebecca was at brigade headquarters. I knew because her schedule was still synced to the household calendar she'd insisted we share. 0900 readiness brief, 10:30 division synchronization call, 1300 certification rehearsal. Her life had boxes around every hour. I spent 40 minutes packing mine, clothes, work documents, 2 framed photographs of Dad and me, the toolbox my grandfather had given me, my old flight helmet, 3 hard drives, a coffee mug from my former aviation unit. I left the furniture, the expensive television, the dining table Rebecca had ordered from a catalog and then complained was too large. I left every wedding photograph except one. That one showed Dad dancing with Rebecca at the reception. He looked 20 years younger, she looked happy. I stared at it for a long time, then put it face down in a drawer. I did not take it. Before leaving, I removed myself as an authorized user from 2 household service accounts. Redirected my pay to my personal account, and transferred exactly half the joint checking balance into a new account, $6,082.17. I emailed Rebecca, I have taken half of the funds in our joint household account. The remaining half is untouched. I have not removed any jointly owned property except personal possessions. Elaine Grant will send the divorce filing through formal channels. Please communicate about property through counsel. I reread it once, then added one line, Dad is stable. He has a follow-up appointment Friday, I sent it. My phone rang 30 seconds later, Rebecca. I declined. She called again, I declined. Then she texted, you actually filed. I took a screenshot. Yes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. We need to talk before this goes any further. I typed, it has already gone further. I loaded the final box into my truck and drove away from our house. At the gate, my phone rang again, this time it was Dad. You busy? Leaving base housing. A pause. Rebecca there? No. You sure about this? Yes. Another pause, longer. Dad had loved Rebecca, and that made his next words harder. Don't do it for me. I'm not doing it because of what she showed me. Better. How's the wrist? Ugly. Doctor says 6 weeks. And your head's still attached? High bar, I like achievable goals. I laughed for the first time since the motor pool. Dad heard it. Come stay here. I have a hotel. Cancel it. I have 3 bedrooms. Your mother will haunt me if I make our son sleep at a Holiday Inn while his life catches fire. Mom had been gone 9 years, but Dad still blamed major household decisions on her. I'll come after work. You going to work? I need to clear some things. Thought you were leaving the base. I am. That part was already in motion. 3 months earlier, the Army Aviation Safety Directorate had offered me a position at the Regional Flight Safety Center in Westbridge, a promotion, not dramatic. Just better work and a chance to lead accident prevention investigations instead of reviewing other people's reports. I had declined because Rebecca's brigade certification was coming up and she'd asked me not to create another geographic problem, her exact words. So I'd stayed. But that morning, before I met the divorce lawyer, I'd emailed the director, if the Westbridge position is still open, I would like to be reconsidered. At 11:18, he replied, call me. I did. My supervisor at Fort Halden was a retired chief warrant officer named Martin Keene, who'd known me for 6 years and disliked unnecessary words. I entered his office at noon, and he looked at the cardboard folder in my hand. You're quitting. Transferring, if Westbridge still wants me. Personal? Yes. Colonel Reed? Yes. He leaned back. Anything I need to know professionally? Her executive officer assaulted my father yesterday. Keen stopped moving. What? I told him all of it. When I finished, he looked toward his closed door. Is there an MP report? Yes. Witnesses? Yes. Video? Partial. He rubbed his jaw. And she kept the XO in place? Yes. That's stupid. I said nothing. Keen opened a drawer and pulled out a form. Westbridge called me 20 minutes ago. I blinked. They did? You told them they could contact me. I did. They want you. He placed the form on his desk. Official release date can be 30 days if headquarters approves. I can put you on administrative telework from Pine Ridge after you clear your local projects. Why? Because if your wife is about to become the subject of an investigation, I don't want anyone claiming your presence inside the same installation creates a conflict. I haven't filed a complaint against her yet. He looked at me. Have you? No. Will you? I thought about Rebecca in that clinic corridor. Marcus is essential right now. And Specialist Pike going pale when he admitted someone from operations had told soldiers not to share footage. Yes. Keen nodded. Then do it clean. That afternoon, I did. The Inspector General's office didn't look dramatic, no darkroom, no line of generals, just fluorescent lights, a gray carpet. And a civilian intake specialist who asked me to explain why I believed command influence might affect an assault investigation. I gave her names, times, the MP incident number, Rebecca's message, the statement about avoiding a command spectacle, the fact that Marcus remained executive officer. I did not accuse Rebecca of ordering anyone to lie. I did not claim Marcus had committed crimes I couldn't prove. I described what I had seen and heard, nothing more. At the end, the specialist asked, "Do you have documentation of the text message you referenced?" Yes. I gave her a printed copy. Please keep your father calm until after certification. Marcus is essential right now. I will handle this. She read it twice. Did Colonel Reed send this? Yes. Can you preserve the original device? Yes. She marked something on the intake sheet. Do not delete any related communication. I won't. Do not discuss witness statements with personnel in the brigade. I haven't. Do not attempt to conduct your own investigation. I won't. That last instruction mattered. I'd spent enough years around military investigations to know the fastest way to ruin evidence was to become emotionally ambitious. So I stopped. I didn't call Specialist Pike, didn't contact the motor pool, didn't ask Dad to embellish a single detail. I let the system move. Rebecca did not. At 5:12 that evening, she showed up at Dad's house. I was in the garage helping him turn a hospital sling into something he could tolerate. Dad heard the car first. That her? I looked through the window. Rebecca stepped out of the SUV in uniform. Yeah. Want me to hide? You'd be terrible at it. True. I walked outside. She stopped beside my truck. You wouldn't answer your phone. I asked you to go through counsel about the divorce. I am not here about property. Then why are you here? To talk to my husband. Your husband filed for divorce. That doesn't make you not my husband overnight. No, yesterday did most of that. She flinched, then recovered. I found out you filed an IG complaint. I looked at her. How? The installation commander's office notified me that an inquiry may involve brigade personnel. Then they're doing what they're supposed to do. You complained about me. I reported what happened. You reported a private text message. You sent me a message asking me to keep my injured father calm until after certification because Marcus was essential. That is not what I meant. You keep saying that because you keep twisting it. Then tell me what you meant. She opened her mouth, closed it. I waited. Finally she said, I meant I needed time to handle the situation without destroying the brigade's preparation. Exactly. That's not the same as protecting Marcus. It is when the reason you need time is because removing him would be inconvenient. Rebecca looked past me toward Dad's house. How is he? You can ask him. She hesitated. Will he talk to me? That's his choice. We went inside. Dad sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee. When Rebecca entered, he did not stand, not because he couldn't, but because he didn't want to. Thomas. Colonel. Her eyes tightened at the title. She sat across from him. I came to see how you're doing. Like a man who got punched by somebody 25 years younger. I'm sorry. Dad took a sip. For what? Rebecca looked at him. For what happened? That sentence has too much fog in it. I stayed by the counter. Rebecca clasped her hands. I'm sorry Marcus struck you. Better. And I'm sorry I reacted too quickly afterward. Better. But I need you to understand that I cannot make personnel decisions based on family relationships. Dad nodded. Then don't. She frowned. You think I'm asking for special treatment? I think you're pretending removing an accused officer from influence over witnesses is special treatment because he's useful to you. Marcus has been ordered not to interfere. Did that stop somebody from telling Pike not to share his video? Rebecca froze, and I did too. Dad looked at me. What? I hadn't told him that detail, but he'd heard it at the clinic. His curtain had been 6 feet away. Rebecca said, Who told you that? Kid said it in the hospital. Major Bell told him to avoid sharing unofficial footage. On whose order? I don't know. Dad raised his coffee mug. Sounds like a good reason to put some distance between your deputy and the people who work for him. Rebecca's face had gone pale. She stood. I need to go. Dad looked at her. Rebecca. She stopped. You were family before yesterday. Her shoulders lowered slightly. I know. No, I don't think you do. She turned, but Dad's voice stayed calm. Daniel has spent 8 years making sure your career never had to choose between the army and home. Dad, he ignored me. He moved when you moved. He passed on jobs. He took care of things you didn't even know were broken. He defended you when people said command changed you. Rebecca looked at me, and I hated that Dad was saying it not because he was wrong, but because I'd never wanted my marriage to become an invoice. Dad continued. Yesterday, he asked for one thing without asking. He expected you to know what was right. Thomas. I am trying to do what is right. No, you're trying to do what's manageable. She stared at him. Dad set down his cup. Those aren't always the same thing. Rebecca left without another word. The next morning, Marcus Vale was still executive officer. By afternoon, he was not. The installation commander appointed an outside investigating officer after the IG office and military police provided preliminary information. Rebecca received a written directive temporarily removing Marcus from executive duties and restricting his access to personnel connected to the incident. The order did not come from her. That mattered. Everyone on Fort Halden knew it by dinner. Military communities move information faster than secure networks when they want to. I refused 3 calls from people I barely knew. One former coworker texted, heard they pulled Vale. You okay? I answered, Dad is recovering. I am fine. Nothing else. At 8 o'clock that night, Rebecca called. I declined. She sent a message, You got what you wanted? I stared at it, then typed, No, Dad still has a broken wrist. I put the phone down. 10 minutes later, another message arrived, You know what I mean. I did, that was the problem. She thought this was about winning. It wasn't. 2 days later, Dad's follow-up scan showed no brain bleeding, and his wrist would heal without surgery. He celebrated by complaining about the splint for 40 straight minutes. I drove him home, and at a red light he looked over. Westbridge, what about it? You taking the job? If they make a formal offer. You want it? Yes. Then why didn't you take it 3 months ago? I looked through the windshield. You know why. No, I know what you told yourself. The light turned green, and I drove. Dad waited, he was good at that. Finally I said, Rebecca had certification coming up, and we'd have been living apart for a while. She said another relocation would make everything harder. Dad nodded. And you made it easier. Yes. She know you wanted the job? Yes. She asked you to decline? Not directly. What did she say? I remembered the conversation. Rebecca at the kitchen island, still in uniform, her laptop open, me holding the offer letter. She'd read the first page and said, Daniel, I can't deal with another geographic problem this year. I'd asked, is that your way of saying don't take it? She'd answered, I'm saying I need you to think about us. So I did. I knew what she wanted. Dad looked out the window. People get real comfortable when you keep interpreting their selfishness politely. I smiled despite myself. You saved those lines? I'm retired. I have time. Westbridge called Monday, the offer was real. Senior Aviation Safety Investigator, 22% pay increase, supervisory authority over 6 analysts, relocation covered, start date in 5 weeks. I accepted before the call ended. When I told Keen, he nodded once. Good. That's it? What do you want, balloons? A handshake would be nice. He stood and shook my hand, then said, now don't screw it up. That was more familiar. I submitted my transfer paperwork, and by Thursday my access at Fort Halden was reduced to what I needed for checkout. I wasn't barred from the base, I simply had no reason to remain inside Rebecca's orbit. That same Thursday, Elaine called. Your wife has retained counsel expected. Her attorney contacted me about mediation already. Apparently, Colonel Reed believes the filing may be withdrawn if the two of you discuss the circumstances. It won't. I assumed. What did you say? That you are willing to mediate property issues. Good. Elaine hesitated. She is also asking to keep the divorce complaint private. I frowned. Isn't it already a civil filing? Yes, she means she does not want either party discussing it publicly or with military personnel. I haven't. I know. Why does she think I will? I can't answer that. But I could. Rebecca had spent her adult life controlling information, briefing slides, talking points, risk statements, command messages. She believed unmanaged information was dangerous. A husband she could no longer predict terrified her more than an angry one ever would. Agree to reasonable confidentiality about personal financial information, nothing that interferes with legal or military investigations. Elaine chuckled. That is exactly what I was going to recommend. Then why do I pay you? To hear it in a more expensive voice. For the first time all week, I enjoyed a conversation about divorce. The formal investigation moved faster than Rebecca expected and slower than I wanted. That was probably a sign it was being done properly. An officer from another installation interviewed Dad for nearly 2 hours. I drove him there but did not sit in. Then they interviewed me. The investigating officer was Colonel Andre Collins, an engineer officer with no connection to Rebecca's brigade. He didn't ask how I felt about my marriage, he asked what Rebecca said, when, where, who heard it, what documents existed. I gave precise answers. When he reached the message, he asked, why did you interpret keep your father calm as an attempt to delay action? Because she added, until after certification. Could she have meant keeping him emotionally calm for medical reasons? Then certification would have been irrelevant. He nodded. Did Colonel Reed ask your father not to make a report? Not directly. Did she ask you to prevent him from making one? Not explicitly. Did she tell Sergeant Cole not to investigate? She told Sergeant Cole there was no need to turn a family dispute into a command spectacle. Exact words, as close as I can remember. Was anyone else present? Marcus Vale was outside the room. Specialist Pike may have been nearby, I don't know if he heard. Did Colonel Reed later support preservation of the video? I don't know. He looked up. Do you have any evidence she ordered the video suppressed? No. Do you have evidence Lieutenant Colonel Vale did? No. Specialist Pike said Major Bell told him Vale wanted personnel not to share unofficial footage, that's all I know. Good. I frowned. Good that you know the difference between evidence and assumption. That mattered to me because rage made assumptions feel like facts, and I did not want rage running my life. Not anymore. 2 days after my interview, Specialist Pike called me. I almost didn't answer, then I remembered investigators hadn't told me I couldn't receive unsolicited contact. Mr. Reed, this is Specialist Pike. Are you okay? Yes, sir. If this is about the investigation, you should talk to the investigating officer. I know, I already did. Then what's up? He was quiet. I wanted to tell you they moved me. My stomach tightened. Brigade operations changed my temporary duty assignment. Before or after your interview? Before. Where? Night vehicle dispatch. Is that normal? No. Did anyone say why? Major Bell said they needed someone reliable. I closed my eyes. Have you told the investigator? Yes. Good. I thought you should know. No, you should not tell me details. He went silent, and I softened my voice. Pike, listen to me. I appreciate what you did for my father, but protect yourself. Follow the investigator's guidance. Keep records. Don't talk to me about evidence. Yes, sir. And stop calling me sir, I'm a civilian. A faint laugh. Hard habit. I know. After we hung up, I documented the call without adding interpretation. Then I emailed Colonel Collins. Specialist Pike contacted me at 1738. I advised him not to discuss evidence with me and to communicate with your office. He stated his temporary duty assignment had changed before his interview and said he had already informed you. I have no additional information. Asterisk. I sent it. That evening, Rebecca came to Dad's house again, this time in civilian clothes, jeans, gray sweater, hair tied back. For a second, she looked like the woman I had married. That was worse than the uniform. Dad was asleep in his chair. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door. You cannot keep showing up. I texted. I didn't answer. I know. She rubbed her hands together against the cold. Can we walk? I considered saying no, then nodded. We walked down Dad's road for 50 yards, neither of us speaking. Rebecca finally said, "They're looking at witness retaliation." I kept my eyes forward. I know nothing about that. They moved Pike tonight, dispatch. I know he was moved. Her head snapped toward me. How? He called me. I told him not to discuss evidence with me. She stopped walking. Daniel, you cannot communicate with witnesses. I did not contact him, he contacted me. Yes, and you didn't tell me. Why would I tell you? Her face tightened. Because this affects my command. Exactly why I would not tell you. She stared at me. I continued walking. She caught up. I didn't approve that reassignment. I didn't say you did. Marcus didn't either, he's restricted. I didn't say he did. Major Bell made the decision. Then investigators will ask Major Bell why. You sound like you don't care what happens to me. I stopped. Rebecca, my father was bleeding on concrete while your deputy told military police he fell. She looked away. You stood in a clinic and told me that man was essential. I made the wrong call. It was the first time she'd said it, not reacted too quickly, not handled it differently, but wrong. I waited. She looked at me. I should have removed him immediately. Yes. I should have separated him from the staff. Yes. I should never have mentioned certification to you. That wasn't the problem. Her eyes narrowed. What? The problem wasn't that you said it, the problem was that certification was what you were thinking about. She looked as if I had struck her. I'm responsible for that brigade, I know everything I do affects thousands of people. I know. I cannot stop thinking like a commander because something happens to my family. No, but you should know when being a commander is turning you into someone your family cannot trust. She went silent. Cars moved along the highway far behind us, and a dog barked somewhere across the fields. Finally, Rebecca said, I can fix this. You can fix your part of the command situation, our marriage? No. You haven't even tried. I almost laughed. 8 years, what does that mean? It means don't tell me I haven't tried. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. Rebecca rarely cried, even after the miscarriage. She'd sat beside me in the dark hospital room with tears standing in her eyes and refused to let them fall until we reached the car. Control, always control. I didn't cheat on you, she said. I know. I didn't stop loving you. Maybe. Her face changed. Maybe? I think you loved knowing I would always adjust. That's cruel. It's not meant to be. You think my entire marriage to you was convenience? No, I think we loved each other. I think somewhere along the way, every sacrifice became mine because your career was always the fixed point. Your career matters. Then name the Westbridge position. She stared at me. What? The job I turned down 3 months ago. I know what it was. Name it, Daniel. Name it. She looked away. I waited, she could not. I nodded. That's what I thought. That isn't fair. You asked me not to take a job you never even bothered remembering. I was under enormous pressure. You were always under enormous pressure. Command is not a normal job. Neither is being married to someone who thinks their job excuse is everything. She folded her arms tightly. Did you take Westbridge? Yes. Her face went blank. You accepted it? Monday. When were you going to tell me? I just did. You are moving 5 weeks out of state. Yes. She took a step back. You're actually leaving. I filed for divorce and moved out. I thought you needed space. No. What was I supposed to think? The words I said. She stared at the road, then whispered, "You always come back." I heard the truth in it, not arrogance exactly, habit certainly. She'd built her life around one assumption: whatever happened, Daniel would come back. I said, "Not this time." The brigade failed its first certification rehearsal 4 days later. I learned that from Keene, not gossip. He walked into my office while I was clearing files. "Your wife's brigade has readiness problems." I looked up. "Not my concern." "Fair." He put a folder on my desk. "Except one of them touches our safety office." I opened it. 3 aviation ground support vehicles assigned to Rebecca's brigade had been reported fully mission capable despite overdue brake inspections. My office had flagged 2 of those inspection gaps 6 weeks earlier. I remembered the emails I'd sent the deficiency notices to the brigade maintenance section. Marcus had replied, * corrective actions underway. No impact to certification readiness, *. Keene tapped the page. Division wants the original correspondence. Give it to them. Already did. Then why show me? Because I don't want you hearing later and thinking I hid it. I read the dates. Did Rebecca know? We sent the notice to her brigade maintenance distribution list. Her personal address wasn't copied, so we don't know. Then don't assume. Keene smiled faintly. Colonel Collins said the same thing about you. What? He called to verify document custody, said you were annoyingly disciplined about facts. I'll put it on my resume. The maintenance issue had nothing directly to do with Dad until it did. The specialist Marcus had shoved at the motor pool, Nolan, had been ground guiding one of the vehicles with overdue brake inspections. The vehicle had rolled unexpectedly, and he'd struck the barrier because the brake response was inconsistent. Marcus had accused him of incompetence. Dad had stepped in. The incident was no longer just an angry officer losing control. Marcus had attacked a soldier for a mistake tied to a maintenance problem his own staff had reported as corrected, and that changed everything. Investigators began looking deeper. I didn't see the documents until weeks later, after they became part of the formal findings. At the time, all I knew was that Rebecca called me at 11:46 at night. I answered because repeated calls that late sometimes meant an emergency. What happened? Silence. Then, you knew about the vehicle inspections. I sat up in Dad's guest bed. What? The overdue inspections. My office flagged them. You knew 6 weeks ago and you didn't tell me. I sent them through official channels. You could have told me. I stared at the dark wall. Rebecca, you are not serious. Marcus told me the deficiencies were corrected. Then ask Marcus why he told you that. You knew we were preparing for certification. My job is not to give my wife private warnings about safety findings sent to her command. You have told me things before, general issues, never protected information, never anything that bypassed your staff. You knew this could hurt them. The brigade? I knew bad breaks could hurt soldiers. She went silent. I continued, my office documented it. Your staff answered. That is how the system works. Daniel. No, you don't get to turn this into another way I failed to support you. That's not what I'm doing. It is exactly what you're doing. I stood and walked into the hallway so I wouldn't wake Dad. If Marcus told you the problems were corrected, he lied or he was wrong. That is between him, you, and the investigation. Do you hate me? The question stopped me. Rebecca's voice sounded smaller than I'd ever heard it. No. Then why does it sound like you don't care? Because caring about you used to mean fixing things before they reached you. I am not doing that anymore. Her breathing changed. Is this punishment? No. Then what is it? A boundary. The words sounded simple. It had taken me 8 years to learn them. She whispered, I don't know how we got here. I did, but I was done explaining things she'd chosen not to see. Good night, Rebecca. I ended the call. Dad's voice came from the living room. That her? I walked in. He was sitting in his recliner. Thought you were asleep. Old men wake up to pee in other people's bad decisions. I laughed. He looked at me. You okay? Yeah. Lie. Better than last week. That I'll accept. He held up his splinted arm. Help me open this bottle of water. I did. Simple problems, clear solutions. I'd forgotten how restful that could be. 3 weeks after the assault, Rebecca was formally removed from command pending completion of the investigation. Not convicted, not disgraced, not escorted off base, relieved temporarily. The division commander announced it in a short official statement, citing loss of confidence in command climate and the need to preserve integrity of ongoing inquiries. Marcus remains suspended. Major Bell was reassigned outside the brigade after investigators found he had moved 2 witnesses without documenting an operational requirement. The certification was postponed. The world did not end. That was one of the things Rebecca had been wrong about. She'd treated removing Marcus like it would collapse the brigade. Instead, another lieutenant colonel stepped in, staff officers adapted, soldiers kept training, vehicles still moved, meals still arrived, schedules shifted. The organization survived. Our marriage did not. Maybe that was because the brigade had redundancy, and we didn't. Elaine called me the afternoon Rebecca was relieved. Her attorney wants an emergency mediation session. Why emergency? Your wife is asking to delay the divorce proceedings until the military investigation concludes. No. I thought you'd say that. Any legal reason? None that requires delay. She is arguing that the stress of concurrent proceedings could affect her ability to defend herself. She has military counsel and civilian counsel, correct? Correct. So, no. Elaine paused. Daniel, there is one issue. What? She is requesting temporary exclusive use of the cabin. Why? She moved out of base housing after relief. I looked out the office window. I was at Westbridge for orientation, 5 states away. My new building overlooked an airfield with 3 training helicopters sitting in the afternoon sun. Let her use it. Elaine sounded surprised. You don't object? No, you own half. I know. You understand that allowing temporary use does not waive ownership? Yes. Why agree? Because I don't want it. A long pause, then Elaine said, You are making my job unusually easy. Don't reduce the bill. No promises. My first week at Westbridge was exhausting, and I loved it. The Regional Flight Safety Center occupied an old headquarters building beside the aviation training complex. My team consisted of 6 people who cared deeply about causes nobody else wanted to think about until after an aircraft hit the ground: maintenance trends, fatigue, training shortcuts, weather judgment, communication failures, the unglamorous machinery that kept pilots alive. My director, Samir Patel, gave me 3 binders, access credentials, and a simple instruction: your job is to make people uncomfortable before accidents happen. I looked at him. That's the official description? Official description is 4 pages, mine is better. For the first time in years, I woke up thinking about my own work, not Rebecca's schedule, not whether she'd eaten, not whether her dress uniform needed to be picked up, not whether the lawn looked respectable before senior officers came over, not whether I could move a medical appointment because her brigade had a ceremony. My apartment was small, temporary, 1 bedroom, with a metal balcony overlooking a parking lot. I bought a cheap dining table, a mattress, 2 lamps, a coffee maker. Nothing matched, and nobody cared. At night, I called Dad. He started physical therapy, his wrist improved, his headache stopped. He complained that retirement had become an endless series of medical professionals asking whether I understand pain on a scale of 1 to 10. I asked, does pain use numbers? What does it use? Profanity. He was healing, so was I. Rebecca called less. Her messages changed, first defensive, *, I never intended to protect Marcus *, then practical, *, Elaine says you agreed I can use the cabin, thank you *, then personal, *, the house is too quiet *. I didn't answer that one. A week later, I found your old coffee mug in the cabinet. I still didn't answer. Then, *, I spoke to Thomas. He said his wrist is improving *. I replied, it is. 3 days passed. She sent, I miss you. I set the phone face down. Missing me was not evidence of change, it was evidence of absence. There was a difference. The investigation report was completed 7 weeks after the assault. I received the portions relevant to my complaint through proper channels after being notified that I was an affected party. It was 83 pages, I read every one. The findings were worse than I expected, and different, that mattered. Investigators did not find evidence that Rebecca ordered anyone to destroy Pike's video. They did not find evidence she directed false witness statements. They did not find that she had an affair with Marcus. Rumors around the base had apparently suggested all 3, and they were false. I was glad. I wanted truth, not the ugliest version of events. What the investigation did find was enough. Marcus had physically assaulted Dad, made a false initial statement to military police by claiming Dad initiated physical contact. and pressured Major Bell to stabilize the narrative before investigators began formal interviews. He had directed subordinates to describe the maintenance vehicle incident as operator error despite unresolved inspection deficiencies. And he had certified corrective maintenance that had not been completed. Major Bell had moved Specialist Pike and Specialist Nolan to night duties after being told they had provided statements inconsistent with Marcus's account. Bell claimed the moves were operational. The investigator found no credible operational reason. Rebecca had not ordered the reassignments, but she had been told about one of them and failed to reverse it. That hurt to read. She'd received an email from Bell stating Pike was becoming a distraction around the staff after the Reed incident and would be moved to dispatch. Rebecca replied, *approved. Keep personnel issues contained until certification. *9 words enough. The report also concluded that after seeing Pike's video at the clinic, Rebecca had sufficient reason to remove Marcus temporarily from his executive duties, but chose not to because she considered him critical to certification preparation. That finding quoted her own interview. "I believed immediate removal would create unacceptable operational risk during a critical certification period." There it was in formal language, the same calculation I had seen in her face. The investigator wrote, "The decision prioritized short-term organizational convenience over protection of witnesses and preservation of command trust." I read that sentence 3 times, not because it made me happy, but because someone with no emotional connection to me had seen the same thing. Rebecca had not been framed, not destroyed by Marcus. She had made a choice. Marcus exploited it, Bell amplified it, but the choice was hers. The division commander issued Rebecca a formal reprimand. Her relief became permanent, her promotion recommendation withdrawn, and she was transferred to a non-command staff assignment while a board reviewed further administrative action. Marcus's case was referred for prosecution. Major Bell received separate disciplinary action and was removed from supervisory duties. The brigade's readiness records were corrected. 3 senior maintenance personnel were cleared of accusations Marcus had placed in their files. Specialist Nolan received an amended incident report stating mechanical deficiency contributed to the vehicle strike. Specialist Pike returned to normal duty. Dad received a formal letter from the installation commander apologizing for the conduct he experienced on base. He read it at his kitchen table, then put it down. "Nice paper, that's all. What do you want me to do? Frame it?" "Maybe. I'd rather frame the hospital bill after they pay it." The government claims process did eventually cover his medical expenses. He cared more about that, so did I. 2 days after the report was released, Rebecca asked to meet in person. I almost refused, then Elaine told me our scheduled property mediation would place us in the same building anyway. So after mediation, Rebecca and I sat in an empty conference room. No uniforms, no lawyers, no staff, just 2 people who had once promised to grow old together. She looked thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, her hair longer than she usually allowed it to get. For the first minute, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I read the report." "So did I. I was wrong." I nodded. She looked down. "I keep trying to find a more complicated sentence, there isn't one." "No." She rubbed her thumb over the edge of a folder. "I thought removing Marcus would destroy certification, it didn't." "No. I thought I could control him." "You couldn't." "I thought if I gave clear instructions, everyone would behave professionally, they didn't." She laughed once, quietly. "I sound ridiculous." "You sound like someone who believed authority could substitute for judgment." She looked at me. "That sounds like Thomas. He has influence." Her eyes softened, then filled, and this time she let the tears fall. I read Bell's email again and again. I knew which one Pike was becoming a distraction. Approved. Keep personnel issues contained until certification. Rebecca wiped her cheek. I didn't even think about what that sounded like. That's the problem. I know. No, Rebecca, I leaned forward, the problem isn't what it sounded like. She closed her eyes. The problem is what I meant. Yes. She nodded for a while, the room silent. Then she said, Marcus used me. Yes. I trusted every readiness update he gave me. Yes. He knew I wanted that certification. Yes. He knew how much pressure I was under. Yes. She looked at me. But you're going to say I still chose? Yes. Her face crumpled, not dramatically, just enough that I saw how tired she was. I hate that you're right. I don't need to be right. What do you need? Nothing from you anymore. She looked as though that hurt more than anger would have. Daniel, I don't mean that cruelly. How else can you mean it? I mean, I stopped building my life around what you need. She stared at the table. Westbridge, how is it? You like it? Very much. She looked up. I looked up the position, that surprised me. She smiled weakly. I finally remembered what it was. I did not return the smile. She continued, Supervisory Safety Investigator, Regional Aviation Center. You oversee accident prevention programs for 6 installations, 5 installations, and 2 training sites, right? I nodded. You wanted that kind of work when we met. I did. And I asked you to stay. You asked me to think about us. That was asking you to stay without having the courage to say it. Yes, I did that a lot. I said nothing. She looked at her hands. I made you volunteer for sacrifices so I wouldn't have to admit I was asking for them. That was probably the most honest sentence she had ever said about our marriage. I felt something inside me loosen, not love, not hope, recognition. Yes. She breathed out. I am sorry. I believe you. Her head lifted. You do? Yes. Does that matter? It matters to me. Hope appeared in her eyes. I stopped it before it could grow. It does not change the divorce. She closed her eyes again. Of course. I'm not saying that to hurt you. I know. The marriage ended for me in that clinic because I protected Marcus. Because I saw what happened when something I loved collided with something you wanted. Her lips trembled. Your father. My father, my career, my time, my plans. Eventually I realized the pattern mattered more than the individual event. She shook her head. I never thought your father deserved what happened. I know. Then why does it feel like you're saying I chose for him to get hurt? I'm saying after he got hurt, you chose what was easiest for your command. She flinched. I continued, I cannot unknow that. She whispered, what if I change? I hope you do. For us? No, for you. She stared at me. I stood, she did too. Please don't go yet. We finished mediation. I don't mean the building. I knew. I picked up my folder. Rebecca stepped closer. I lost command, I know. My promotion is gone, I know. I may never command again, I know. I thought when all of that happened, you would feel vindicated. I don't. Why not? Because I didn't file for divorce to destroy your career. Then why doesn't it make you want to help me? The question was so familiar that for a second I saw our entire marriage inside it. Why doesn't it make you want to help me? Because help had become my identity, because Rebecca had mistaken my willingness to carry weight for an obligation to carry hers forever. I answered carefully, because you have to learn how to stand without me holding everything level. She cried then quietly, no begging, no dramatic collapse, just grief. I hated seeing it, but grief was not a reason to return to a broken structure. I opened the door. She said my name. I turned. I really did love you. I know. Do you still love me? That was harder. I could have lied. I didn't. Part of me probably always will. Her face changed, hope again. I finished the sentence, but love is not enough to make me trust you with my life. The hope disappeared. I left. Marcus Vale's court-martial began 3 months later. Dad and Specialist Pike testified. I was not required to, but I attended one day because Dad asked me to drive him. Marcus looked smaller without the machinery of command around him. His lawyer argued that the assault occurred during a rapidly escalating confrontation and that Marcus had acted reflexively after Dad grabbed his sleeve. The video made that difficult, so did the medical evidence, so did Specialist Nolan, so did Marcus's false statement afterward. The prosecution presented messages showing Marcus had ordered Bell to keep witnesses aligned with the factual command position. There had never been an official factual command position, Marcus had invented one. The most damaging evidence, according to Dad, was not the punch, it was the cover-up. Marcus eventually accepted responsibility for assault, making a false official statement, and obstructive conduct related to witness handling. He was dismissed from service. I did not celebrate. Dad didn't either. We ate burgers afterward, he complained about courtroom coffee, and we drove home. That was enough. Rebecca's administrative review concluded a month later. She remained in the Army, barely. Her reprimand stayed in her permanent file. She lost command eligibility for the foreseeable future, and she was assigned to a planning directorate several states away. No star, no brigade, no large formation waiting for her voice. I heard the outcome from her attorney during final divorce negotiations. She did not ask me to intervene. There was nothing I could have done anyway. The legal system divided our marriage with less drama than the army had divided responsibility. Rebecca kept temporary possession of the cabin until sale. We agreed to sell it and split the proceeds according to documented contributions. She kept her vehicle, I kept mine. She kept the furniture, I kept my tools, motorcycle, computers, and personal accounts. Neither of us requested support, no hidden assets, no last-minute tricks, no war over dishes. Elaine looked almost disappointed. Most people with this much emotion find a lamp to fight over. I don't want the lamps. Your wife doesn't either. Good. Ex-wife, soon. I looked at the final decree draft, soon. Dad regained full use of his wrist before the divorce became final. His physical therapist told him to continue strength exercises. Dad interpreted that as permission to rebuild an old motorcycle engine. I found him in the garage one Saturday with oil on both hands. You are supposed to be doing controlled resistance. This bolt is resistant. That is not what she meant. She should have been more specific. I took the wrench away. He glared at me. Abuse of authority. File a complaint. He smiled, then his expression softened. Divorce next week? Tuesday. You okay? Yes, real yes. I thought about it. Real yes. He nodded. You miss her sometimes, that's allowed. I know. Good. He picked up another wrench. I took that one too. You're annoying. Genetic. The final hearing lasted 23 minutes. Rebecca appeared in a dark blue suit, I wore gray. Our lawyers handled most of the speaking. The judge reviewed the settlement, asked whether both parties entered it voluntarily. We said yes. Asked whether the marriage was irretrievably broken. Rebecca hesitated only for a second. Then said, yes, Your Honor. I said the same. The judge signed 8 years ended in black ink. Outside the courthouse, Elaine shook my hand. Call me if anything in the property sale becomes complicated. I hope I never see you professionally again. Best compliment a divorce lawyer gets. She left. Rebecca stood by the courthouse steps. I could have walked away, but I waited. She came toward me. It's done. Yes. She held an envelope. I found something. I didn't take it. What? She opened it and removed a folded sheet of paper, my Westbridge offer letter. The original one, the one I'd left in a kitchen drawer months ago. You kept it? Apparently. She looked at the paper. Your salary offer was right there. I said nothing. Your position description, still nothing. Your start date, she swallowed. I read the entire thing last week. All right. I should have read it then. Yes. She handed it to me. This time I took it. Why now? Because I think I finally understand what I did. I waited. She looked toward the courthouse doors. When you handed me this letter, I didn't see your opportunity. I saw a problem on my calendar. Her voice shook. That was it, the whole marriage reduced to one sentence. She continued, I saw your father's surgery as a scheduling problem. Your work trips as scheduling problems, holidays as scheduling problems. When Marcus hit Thomas, I saw the investigation as a certification problem. Tears filled her eyes. I turned everyone I loved into something that had to fit around command. I looked at her. That's something you can change. She nodded. I started counseling. Good. I meet with a mentor in my new directorate. Good. I apologize to Pike and Nolan through the proper process, no pressure, no request for forgiveness. Good. I wrote Thomas, he showed me. He didn't answer. He doesn't owe you one. I know. She looked at me. I used to think if I could fix enough things, maybe you'd come back. I said nothing. Now I understand that trying to get you back would make the apology about me. That surprised me, she smiled sadly. Counseling seems useful. It is. We stood there while people moved around us, divorces, traffic tickets, custody hearings, ordinary endings. Rebecca said, do you remember the night before my command ceremony? Yes, you stayed up until 2 fixing the frame on my service display because the glass cracked. I remember. I didn't even ask how your interview went that day. My interview for an aviation safety position I'd wanted, I hadn't gotten it at the time. I told myself it didn't matter. I remember that too, I'm sorry. I know. She nodded. That's all. She stepped back, then stopped. Daniel. Yeah. If I ever become someone you could trust again, I know that doesn't mean you owe me anything. I studied her for the first time since the clinic. I heard no hidden request inside her words. No, it doesn't. I know. She looked down at my left hand, no ring, the pale band was gone now. Take care of yourself. You too. She walked toward the parking lot. I watched until she reached her car, then I turned the other way. Westbridge became home slowly, not because I found someone new, I didn't for a long time. I didn't want romance, I wanted mornings that belonged to me, work that challenged me without swallowing my identity. Visits to Dad because I missed him, not because I was the only available person on a family calendar. I wanted friends I'd neglected and hobbies I'd stopped making time for. I bought a small house 15 minutes from the aviation center, 2 bedrooms. A garage, a narrow backyard with a fence that leaned slightly to the left. Dad came out for a month and declared the fence a personal insult. We repaired it together, his wrist held up. I bought a used touring motorcycle and rebuilt the carburetor. I joined a weekend flying club and regained my civilian rotorcraft medical clearance. The first time I took a helicopter up again, the instructor beside me asked whether I wanted him to handle the departure. No, I've got it. I wrapped my hand around the controls. The aircraft lifted cleanly, the ground fell away, and for 10 minutes I forgot every courthouse, every investigation, every text message. There was only airspeed, torque, vibration, horizon control, not control over other people, but control over my own decisions. At work, my team uncovered a recurring maintenance shortcut affecting training aircraft at 2 installations. The problem was boring, a small inspection item, easy to defer, easy to rationalize, exactly the kind of thing that becomes catastrophic when enough people decide convenience matters more than procedure. We pushed the correction through. 3 months later, Samir walked into my office. Director's position opens next spring. I looked up. Congratulations, for you, idiot. I've been here less than a year. Performance does not own a calendar. I laughed. Rebecca would hate that sentence. Samir knew I was divorced, nothing more. Who? Nobody. He dropped a packet on my desk. Apply. I opened it. For years. Every career decision had begun with the same question: how will this affect Rebecca? This time there was only one: do I want this? The answer was yes, so I applied. Dad called that evening. Director, maybe more money, some bigger office, probably more paperwork. Definitely. Terrible idea. I knew you'd support me. That's what fathers are for. He paused. Rebecca wrote again. I went still. What did she say? Nothing dramatic, told me she'd been assigned to a planning group, said she hoped my wrist was good. Is it better than your fence? That fence is straight, it's emotionally straight. What does that mean? I'll explain when you're older. I smiled. Are you going to answer her? Dad was quiet. Maybe. Why? Because I'm not angry every day anymore, that mattered. Doesn't mean I forgot, doesn't mean I trust her, just means carrying anger gets heavy. I leaned back in my chair. That's true. Dad cleared his throat. You still angry sometimes, at her? Mostly at myself, for staying in a pattern I knew was wrong. Dad snorted. That's useless. Thanks. You learned eventually, then stopped charging interest. That was another one of his retired first sergeant lines. I wrote it down after we hung up, not because I needed wisdom on a wall, but because it made me laugh. 6 months later, the Regional Flight Safety Center selected me as deputy director, not director. Samir got that part wrong. I didn't mind. It was still the biggest professional responsibility I'd ever held. At the small promotion ceremony, Dad sat in the front row wearing the suit he hated. Keene drove in from Fort Halden. And Specialist Pike, now Sergeant Pike, sent a message through official email after seeing the announcement, *, congratulations, Mr. Reed. Also, your father still owes me $20 from the clinic vending machine. *. I showed Dad, he lies about the 20. About the amount, how much? 5, you borrowed vending machine money from a specialist. I was concussed. Convenient. I mailed Pike $20 in a card. Dad called it corruption, I called it interest. Rebecca heard about my promotion somehow. She sent one message: congratulations, you earned it. I read it, then typed, thank you, and nothing more, nothing less. That was when I realized I'd finally reached a place where her name appearing on my screen did not change the temperature of the room. I didn't need to block her, didn't need to punish her, didn't need her to suffer. Her life belonged to her, mine belonged to me. A year after the assault, Dad asked me to drive back to Fort Halden with him. The installation had invited him and several witnesses to a leadership forum built around the command climate failures exposed by the investigation. My first reaction was no. Dad raised an eyebrow. You scared of the gate? No, then drive. So I did. Fort Halden looked exactly the same. That surprised me. The same signs, the same concrete barriers, the same rows of government buildings, the same helicopters in the distance. For months, the place had existed in my memory like the sight of an explosion. Returning made it ordinary again. At the visitor center, Dad looked at me. You okay? Yeah, real yes. Real yes. We entered. The forum took place in an auditorium near division headquarters. I sat in the back. Dad spoke for 12 minutes. He didn't mention Rebecca by name, didn't mention Marcus more than necessary. He talked about leadership, about how soldiers learn what an organization values by watching what leaders excuse. He talked about rank gives you responsibility before it gives you privilege. Then he looked toward the young officers in the audience. If the people around you are afraid to tell you bad news, you are not leading, you are being protected from reality. I smiled. That was Dad. No slides, no jargon, just truth sharpened by age. Afterward, several soldiers approached him. I stayed near the exit. A familiar voice behind me said, Daniel. I turned. Rebecca stood 10 feet away. She wore her uniform, no command insignia, no brigade patch on the right shoulder beyond what her service authorized. Just a colonel working a staff job. She looked healthier, calmer, older. So did I, probably. I didn't know you'd be here, she said. Dad asked. He was good, he usually is. She smiled. How are you? Good. I heard about Westbridge. News travels. It does. How are you? She looked around the auditorium. Different, good, different, mostly. She hesitated. I'll retire next year. I was surprised. You're sure? Yes. What will you do? I don't know. I almost said you'll figure it out, then realized she already knew that. She looked toward Dad. He answered my last letter. I know, I cried for an hour. Sounds uncomfortable. She laughed very quietly. Dad had written her 3 sentences, Rebecca, my wrist healed. I hope you learned something useful from what happened. I am not ready to call you family again, but I no longer wish you harm, Thomas. That was forgiveness by Dad's standards, not restoration, not erasure, enough. Rebecca looked at me. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I had suspended Marcus immediately? Sometimes. Would we still be married? I considered the question. A year earlier I might have said yes, now I knew better. Maybe for longer, but Marcus didn't create the problem between us. She nodded slowly. He exposed it. Yes. And I exposed it. Yes. She accepted that without flinching. That was new. I used to think losing you was the punishment for what I did, now I think losing you is just the consequence. I said nothing. The punishment was realizing I had become someone I didn't respect, and the work is becoming someone I do. I nodded. That sounds healthier. It is. Dad called from across the lobby. You planning to make me drive myself? I looked at Rebecca. She smiled. Go, take care. You too this time. When we walked away from each other, neither of us looked back. Dad and I crossed the parking lot. The afternoon sun reflected off windshields. A formation of helicopters moved somewhere beyond the hangars. Dad stopped. You two okay? Yeah. She asked you to come back? No. Good. I unlocked the doors. Dad climbed into the passenger seat. After I started the engine, he looked toward brigade headquarters in the distance. You know, I thought for a while I'd always hate this place. Me too. Turns out concrete doesn't care. Insightful. I'm available for speaking engagements. I noticed. We drove toward the gate. A year earlier, I'd left Fort Halden carrying boxes in the back of my truck and divorce papers waiting at a lawyer's office. I'd thought leaving meant losing something, a marriage, a home, a future I'd spent 8 years maintaining. I understood it differently now. Some doors don't close because you failed to hold them open. Some doors close because you finally stopped using your body to keep them from shutting. The guard checked my identification, then raised the barrier. I drove through. Dad adjusted the radio. My phone remained silent in the console. Westbridge was 5 hours away. My office would be waiting Monday. My house would need the gutters cleaned. The motorcycle still had a fuel problem at high RPM. Dad would complain about my coffee. There were reports to finish, flights to review, people to train, and 100 ordinary choices ahead of me. They were mine, that was enough. I looked in the mirror once. Fort Halden was already disappearing behind us, then I faced the road and kept driving.